Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Shelfie for Crossing the T's Book Festival. I'm Sherston Luckins. I'm your festival coordinator, and I have been joined by John Alexander. Now, let me tell you a little bit about John. John began his career in advertising, and he won the very prestigious Big Creative Idea of the Year award, and then decided it was time for a dramatic change. So, driven by a deep need to understand the impact on society of 3,000 commercial messages a day, which is frankly a little mind-boggling. He got himself 3 master's degrees, all of them exploring consumerism and alternatives to consumerism from lots of different angles. So in 2014, he co-founded something called the New Citizenship Project to bring those ideas that he had been researching and writing and learning about, bringing those ideas into contact with reality. And his book, Citizens, is where he gets to share them with the world. So Citizens, it says, charts the recent rise of the citizen story across politics, business, civil society, and in our communities, and explores how it's challenging the fundamental nature and assumptions of our institutions. This is revolutionary stuff. And the book shows us what we can all do as individuals to play our part in the transformation into something that is alternative to consumerism. So this is a big thing. This is really fascinating. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass over to John now, who's actually going to speak about the concepts of this book and about why you should read it. So without further ado, I will unpin myself and pin John. John, please tell us more.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be doing a Shelfie. I'm going to wave my book, Citizens, Why the Key to Fixing Everything is All of Us, hastily at the camera. Basically the ideas behind the ideas that I'm showing in the book are really about a way of seeing the moment in time we're living in, and seeing it through the lens of 3 stories, of stories about self and society, stories that inform our way of seeing ourselves, seeing one another. And those 3 stories that I talk about are run in a broadly historical sequence. So I talk about the idea that up until for a very long time, the historical range of the book is almost as ambitious as the subtitle, Why the Key to Fixing Everything is All of Us. But I go right back to King Sargon of Akkad in around 2500 BC and discover that the subject story, it's the first of the 3 stories I talk about, was dominant in human society for a very long time. And what the subject story said was that the right thing for us to do was to keep our heads down, do as we're told, and get what we're given, on the basis that the God-given few who run society knew best, and they would lead us to the best outcomes for society as a whole. And like I said, that's the story of kings and empires and colonization and all this sort of thing. And the bargain of that story is protection in return for obedience. Up to the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th, that story was dominant. It reached its climax in the British Empire, really. But then, as a result of the Industrial Revolution, the rise of the middle class, the story couldn't hold anymore. Its contradictions became too powerful. And I would argue it brought society to conflict. The 2 world wars were, to at least some degree, a result of the collapse of that story. And out of the 2 world wars, we constructed, more or less deliberately, a different story, what I call the consumer story. And the consumer story said the right thing to do is to look out for number 1, to get the best deal for yourself, to choose the option that suits you best from those that are offered, on the basis that if everyone pursues individual self-interest, then that will add up to collective interest. That will add up to the best outcomes for society as a whole. And what I believe we're living in right now is the collapse of that story, just as the subject story fell apart before. And we're seeing how it's driven and taken down the localized power of communities in so many ways and undermined that. And we're seeing in its place potentially emerging what I call the citizen story. And the citizen story says that the right thing to do actually is to share your ideas, energy and resources, to contribute those to the search for the best society as a whole, and for leaders and organisations to seek to encourage people to do that. And if we do that, then it's precisely by tapping into those ideas, energy and resources that we will find the best society as a whole. Because all of us are smarter than any of us. It's not by doing as we're told or seeking self-interest that we'll do this. It's by collaboration, working together and creating. And that the big argument of the book really is that that is human nature, and that is actually happening in so many ways and places across the world. And I thought what I would do is just read, I've co-opted the structure of the Shelfie by talking about my book instead of reading from it. But I thought to play by the rules a little bit, I would read you a little bit rather than a full section. So I'm going to read you a little bit from chapter 7, which is about the Taiwanese government and its response to the COVID pandemic. So this section is called Citizens times COVID. Then came the pandemic. On the 31st of December 2019, the Wuhan Municipal Health Commission posted a public briefing on its website about a pneumonia outbreak of unknown cause spreading through the city. The news was picked up on Chinese state television and newspapers, with the People's Daily stating that the exact cause remains unclear and it would be premature to speculate. It was also picked up by Reuters and by outlets around the world, including Deutsche Welle. Much of what happened next, and continues to happen, we all know all too well, but very few people know anything about what happened in Taiwan, and everyone needs to. Taiwan's government built a response on the unwavering foundational belief that its people were intelligent, capable and responsible, individuals who had the desire and the capacity to shape the places they lived for the better. A citizen response. 3 principles shaped its approach. The precautionary principle was top of the list, preventing any great and plausible harm the first concern. There had to be some awareness of the economic cost of the actions, of course, but the government saw the nation as a society first and a market second. People were creatures of intrinsic worth first, and producers and consumers, units of economic value, a distant second. Acting fast would be the default. Next came involvement. Understanding its citizens to be intelligent, capable and responsible, the government saw no need to protect them from unpleasant information as if they were small children, on the basis they might panic. That would not only be patronising, but also deeply wasteful of the opportunity to let everyone do their part. Instead, every opportunity would be sought to tap into their ideas, energy and resources. Finally, equity and fairness. Since every human being is equally worthy of basic rights, possessing of fundamental human dignity, the government sought to give everyone the same respect, the same power and the same opportunities. Precaution, involvement, equity. Audrey Tang was right at the heart of both the substance and the communication of this response, with one of her contributions being to bring some alliteration and joy to the plan, coining these principles more memorably as fast, fun and fair. And I just want to skip to one little particular example of what happened as a result of this. The Taiwanese government set up a national telephone hotline with a message recorded by the president herself, which any citizen could call to propose their ideas of the national response. Then the daily press conference was used to celebrate these contributions, making them famous and encouraging more. Among the callers was a 6-year-old boy who called up concerned that his classmates did not want to wear their regulation issue pink face masks, asking for the nation's baseball team to make them more appealing. 6 of Taiwanese baseball's biggest names joined a press conference, resplendent in their pink face masks, just a few days later. So just to give you a sense of that, of the story that really made me see that this is completely possible on a national scale, and it's happening in the world right now. And that's really what I wanted to do with this book, is to say there is a way for us to be, there is a way for us to act, and a way that our leaders could tap into our creativity and our capability as citizens. And I think by trying to name that and show that, what I'm trying to offer is a glimpse of a world we could step into in this moment in time.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you, John. And a lovely snippet to give us a sense of the kind of amazing stories that are contained within the book itself and within the big idea, which is so helpful, isn't it, when you're trying to grasp a new concept, to actually see see it in action in that way. What a wonderful story. Thank you. Lovely. So there will be links for people to purchase your book and to read further. But also, is there anything that you would like to recommend to our readers from your shelf?
So I'm going to leave you with my recommendation, which is the lovely Ece Temel Curran's book, Together, 10 Choices for a Better Now, which is actually just about to come out in paperback, I think with a slightly different subtitle, which I can't remember. But Ece is a Turkish political commentator and activist. She first wrote a book called, well, she first hit fame for writing a book called How to Lose a Country, the 7 Steps from Democracy to Dictatorship. Which is a real sort of sight of the dangers of our time. But then after writing that book and touring with that book, Ece found that what people were asking her where the hope is. And as a result, she went on a journey searching for the hope, really the hope the other side of despair. And the book Together is one that has inspired me greatly in my work. And Ece and I are actually doing a few events together in May. But it's a wonderful book. It's that kind of very deep hope that lies not just in saying everything will be all right, not just in a blind optimism, but in saying we can make things better. We can do this if we all lean in and take action. And I would deeply recommend it to anyone.
John, thank you so much. That sounds wonderful, and we'll make sure there's a link to that book as well. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. John Alexander.